Hello, hi. It's a pleasure to have you on my channel once more today. My name is Chika and I'm your regular host, giving you details and information on domestic violence. At domestic violence, one of our major aims is to enlighten, to educate, provide help and support to victims of domestic violence. You will be wild to learn that domestic violence was actually founded by a group of young men who are passionate about making positive impacts in the society. Today, not just only in Nigeria but around the world, domestic violence, which takes different forms, has really eaten deep into the society. Hence, there is a need to educate both the young and the old, to enlighten using different channels, different platforms, different means, because domestic violence affects everybody. It's a no respecter of their age, it's a no respecter of their race, it is a no respecter of their profession, or it is a no respecter of their title. So I encourage you to share this broadcast, to like this video, comment and let me know what your thoughts are, and perhaps you can as well share with your loved ones so that people will be able to identify these signs of domestic violence when they see one. So once again, welcome to my platform. Today I want to speak on the topic that is called psychological abuse. Psychological abuse. Psychological abuse is actually one of the forms of abuse, one of the forms of domestic abuse or domestic violence. Domestic violence takes different shapes, but today my focus is on psychological abuse. So I'll be speaking of 4 things about psychological abuse today. So I'm gonna take you through what is psychological abuse. I'm also going to take you through the different types of psychological abuse. I'll also take you through examples of psychological abuse and perhaps some traits or characteristics that you will see in a person, and you'll be rest assured that this person is a perpetrator of psychological abuse. Are you interested? Are you ready to learn new things today? Sit down, tighten your seatbelt. What is psychological abuse? Before I start to give you the definition of psychological abuse, first of all, it is important to ask yourself, we've been hearing about abuse everywhere. What is really an abuse? What do you understand as an abuse? And it is very important that you get to understand what an abuse is. So, an abuse basically is any behavior intended to cause harm to another person. So, whatever actions, whatever behaviors, whatever thoughts or mindsets that you have to cause harm to another person, that means you are an abuser. You are having traits or qualities that qualifies you as an abuser. So now, what is psychological abuse? And so psychological abuse is one of the deadliest forms of domestic violence. These are the kinds of abuse that lead people to do the unthinkables, such as committing suicide. So what is psychological abuse? Psychological abuse is basically any behavior intended to undermine a person's well-being or self-esteem. So when you begin to undermine a person's self-esteem or well-being through your actions, through the words you say, through the way you treat people, that indeed is psychological abuse. And there are a lot of places where these things can be found. It can be found in working places, can be found in religious places, it can be found in your homes. And who are most likely the perpetrators? So these places that I've mentioned, I mean, talking about the religious places, I mean, some pastors do commit what we call psychological abuse. Then when you talk about homes, parents usually also are responsible or commit psychological abuse. Then you talk about workplaces, most companies, management, or senior management personnel, or even managers are usually the ones who commit this form of abuse. So remember that I said that psychological abuse is a behavior intended to undermine a person's well-being or self-esteem. If you begin to observe that the self-esteem of your child is very low, it could be that your child has been abused psychologically. But children will never tell you most of all these things unless you have built a very good rapport relationship with your child. That's when they begin to open up. When they go to schools like this, there are other kids in the schools that usually abuse them psychologically. So now this takes us to what we call types of psychological abuse. And when you're talking about types of psychological abuse, there are two main types of psychological abuse, which is emotional abuse and mental abuse. These two are usually used interchangeable. They are very, very similar. I mean, if you talk about psychological abuse, they can't do without these two forms of psychological abuse: emotional abuse and mental abuse.